The May, the May 20th, 2019 meeting of the Planning and Economic Development Committee will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ansello. Here. Ms. Boyce. Here. Chairwoman DeFlorio.
Here.
Ms. Cayley is excused. Mr. Moyle.
Is there anyone signed up for the public forum?
There's not.
Is there anyone present who has not signed up to speak who would like to address the committee at this time? Seeing none, the next item on the agenda is presentations. I'd like to welcome Rochelle Bell, Planning Manager of the Planning and Development Department, who will now give a brief overview on the 2020-25 Capital Improvement Program as it pertains specifically to planning and economic development. Thank you, Rochelle.
Of the county executive's recommended 2020-2025 CIP. The Monroe County Planning Board reviewed the proposal, held a public information meeting, and prioritized the budget year's projects before the CIP being submitted to your honorable body. At the full legislature meeting in June, you'll set a public hearing for July, and then upon your favorable review, we'll vote to approve the plan. There are no funding approvals associated with taking action on this referral. The 6-year program is summarized on pages 2 to 3 of your CIP. So let's look at the program in terms of funding sources, budget year funding, and new projects. The proposed total program funding is $405 million. Total county funding is just over $242 million in the proposed CIP, which is 60% of the total program funding. There are two kinds of county funding: cash capital, which is cash directly out of the operating budget, and county bonding funds. Projects that use cash capital do not impact the county's debt. Compared to the adopted CIP, the proposed CIP reflects a 6.2 decrease in county bonding and a 55.5 increase in county cash. Total district funding is used by the Pure Waters program and accounts for almost 13% of the total CIP funding. This year, we were able to move a lot of the district funding to district cash. So same idea. It's coming out of the district's operating budget and not adding to the different Pure Waters districts' debt service. Enterprise funding, or also known as user fees, for the hospital, airport, and solid waste accounts for almost 9% of the CIP funding. Enterprise funding increased almost 35% from the adopted CIP, mostly due to gaining clarity about airport needs after the big renovation was completed. State and federal funding is used in the MCC, airport, facilities, traffic engineering, highway and bridges, and sheriff's programs. Together, state and federal funding account for almost 19% of the capital improvement plan, and it's approximately 7% higher than in the adopted program. And finally, private funding is the last kind of funding. There's $1.9 million in private funding in the CIP. A private developer is planning to pay for part of the East River Road project. Table 2 on pages 4 through 7 of your CIP lists 65 capital budget projects, so projects that will be funded in 2020. They're in priority order as determined by the Planning Board. Okay, so now I'm going to highlight a few departments, just pick a few departments out of the 15 different ones in the CIP. And I'm just going to talk about new projects or interesting funding or schedule changes. So the airport has a very large program with 27 projects. It begins on page 25 of your CIP. One new project is introduced in 2023, and it involves relocating runway 28 landing threshold. Also, there was some scheduling of the overall program to accommodate 2 projects that had to be funded in 2020. So the airport funding has to change as FAA priorities and funding opportunities change. The Department of Environmental Services has 3 divisions. Pure Waters begins on page 41, and as was anticipated last year, the Frank E. Van Leer Water Resource Recovery Facility involves sizable district funding in 2020. Beginning this year, general improvements to the sanitary sewer system are funded with district cash and so will not impact the district's debt service payments. The Facilities Management Program begins on page 47. The Hall of Justice Sallyport is new to the CIP with funding scheduled in 2025. Work on 111 Westfall and the county office building were rescheduled, were pushed out to later years to balance Hall of Justice projects that have to be funded in 2020. The Solid Waste Division added a new project this year, Gloria Drive landfill improvements. This is discussed on page 53 of your CIP. The 6-year program for parks begins on page 54. The general rhythm for the Parks Department is to update a master plan for a park and then design and implement recommendations from the master plan. These recommendations usually include accessibility improvements, trail rehabilitation, lighting upgrades, and similar improvements. Funding for the Grease Canal Park improvements were added to the 6-year program in the proposed CIP for 2025. The Highway and Bridges program for DOT is a big program. It starts on page 61. There are 2 new bridge projects in this year's CIP, Vintage Lane Bridge over Round Pond Creek and Turk Hill Road Bridge over Thomas Creek tributary. Public Safety's 6-year program, page 84, if you're following along in your book, there are 2 projects identified as new in their program. The Public Safety Communications Infrastructure Replacement Project last year was part of the Public Safety Communications Infrastructure Project. Same sounding title, but the keyword difference is replacement. The replacement project it's large. It's not something that can be funded out of county cash like the other project. So we just broke it out to be its own project. There's also a big schedule change with the 911 logging recorder replacement project. We moved that out to 2025 because the 911 logging recorder equipment was upgraded. So we've got more life in that. And then finally, the Sheriff's Office program begins on page 91. And in general, previously programmed projects are moving forward as planned. There's 1 new project in 2025 at the end of the 6-year program, the jail mainframe reconstruction. And that is the mainframe tower is being reconstructed to replace facilities that have met the end of their useful life or no longer meet programmatic needs. So thank you for your attention, and I will be happy to answer any questions you have when you get to this item on your agenda.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. You have the February 25th, 2019 minutes before you. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day. The next item on the agenda is new business. Mr. Clerk.
Referral 19-0120.
Moved by Legislator Boyce, seconded by Legislator Ansello. Any discussion? Yes, Legislator.
Yes, through the chair. I do have a question with regards to the East River Road project that you mentioned. You said that it was going to be privately funded by a developer. Can you give us a little bit more detail on that?
Through the chair, I think we can get you more information when representatives from the Department of Transportation are available, but my discussions with them, primarily this is funds that are coming through the town as the developer share of the road improvements that are going on, mainly to do with intersection improvement, and there's a network of bicycle and recreational paths that will be created that are going to be linked into properties that already have the existing pathway system there, so that residents, students at RIT, and employees at the development will be able to take full advantage of it. But as that development comes into fruition, there's a need for some interchange improvements, and what was originally scheduled, I believe, needed to be enhanced given the expected number of employees that would be going to that facility.
Okay.
The town also has a master plan for development in that area too, and this dovetails with that.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 19-0121.
Moved by Legislator Ansello, seconded by Legislator Boyce. Any discussion? Legislator Moya.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the administration, what department is responsible for writing these grants?
Through the chair, it's Planning and Development, and it's the Community Development Division.
Okay, thank you. And through the chair, when are these grants due, or have they already been submitted?
Through the chair, the application is due June 13th.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any further discussion? Yes, Legislator.
Yes, through the chair, can you tell us why there is about $67,000 decrease in the funding?
Through the chair, HUD determines the allocations that Monroe County receives,
Right?
so they do not give us an explanation as to why there's a reduction.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item carries. Are there any other matters to come before the committee at this time? Seeing none, the May 20th, 2019 meeting of the Planning and Economic Development Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Planning and Economic Development Committee will be held on Monday, June 24th at 5:15 p.m.